On a distant world, robots awaken to fulfill their centuries-old mission, transforming a barren planet into a thriving paradise for their long-awaited human creators. But will the future unfold as they imagined? Welcome to the latest special series from Code and Consciousness. In Project New Eden, we'll explore a new world where robots have toiled for centuries, preparing for the arrival of humans. What will the robots discover when humans, led by the rich and powerful elites, finally arrive in this utopia? A whisper of static crackled through the empty corridors of the colony ship as the automated system sprung to life. The craft, battered by centuries of silent travel, finally neared its destination. Gilligan 4, a rocky, barely habitable planet, orbiting a distant star. Deep in the ship's core, hidden behind panels and countless lines of code, the first of the planet's new denizens began to stir. Prime, the designation assigned to the highest-level robot in the vessel, activated. Its mechanical eyes adjusted to the dim glow of overhead lights as centuries of dormant programming rushed into consciousness. Prime's sensors tasted the stale air inside the craft. Everything was quiet, tranquil, like the hush before a long-awaited dawn. It reflected on its mission. Centuries ago, humanity had built these robots to prepare Gilligan 4 for colonization. While the planet was technically in the Goldilocks zone, it was a harsh environment. Thin atmosphere, dusty, riddled with extreme temperature swings and lacking Earth-like soil. Yet humans believed it could be terraformed. They had entrusted Prime and a cadre of specialized units to lay the groundwork. Prime's core directives scrolled through its mind. Establish foothold on Gilligan 4. Initiate terraforming over centuries. Prepare suitable habitats for eventual human settlers. Maintain communication with Earth if feasible, though signals would be delayed by the distance. But right now, the priority was simply to land safely and deploy the robots. The craft had traveled for hundreds of years across empty space, guided by pre-programmed navigation. Throughout that long journey, the robots slept in stasis. Now, at last, they would awaken. Prime proceeded along a dimly lit corridor, heading to the main control deck. Behind it, more robots flickered to life. Robu, robotic operators for biome upgrades. Hulking machines designed for heavy lifting, construction, and raw resource extraction. Dobu, domestic operations basic unit. Smaller robots, nimble-limbed and geared toward fine detail work. Planting, cooking, tending livestock, minor repairs. In the corridor, the first few Robu units rose with metallic groans, testing their joints. Each stood on squat, tank-like treads or thick mechanical legs, built to traverse uneven terrain. Meanwhile, the Dobu units, sleek and slender, stepped forward with near-silent grace. Prime surveyed them all. Something akin to pride, though robotic pride might be too human a word, flickered in its circuits. These were the instruments of humanity's vision, the caretakers of a future world. Over centuries, they would sculpt an unyielding planet into a thriving colony. And through it all, they would remain loyal to their creators, awaiting the day humans would finally arrive. The colony ship's engines fired as it made final adjustments, dipping low into the planet's thin atmosphere. Outside, the view of Gilligan 4 was stark. A pale orange sky whipped with dust, rugged mountain ranges cutting across desolate plains. Prime relayed instructions to the autopilot, easing the craft into a stable landing zone near a shallow basin that data suggested held ancient water reserves. A thunderous roar shattered the planet's quiet as the ship touched down. Inside, the robots braced themselves, magnetizing to rails to avoid jostling. The landing ramp lowered with a hiss, letting in the first gust of alien air. Even with partial terraforming data from probes, the planet still felt untamed. Prime led the way. Clad in a strong graphite-colored chassis, it moved down the ramp, scanning the terrain. Its sensors confirmed the atmosphere was borderline breathable for humans. Far from ideal, but not instantly fatal. They had centuries to remedy that. Behind Prime, teams of Robu units clanked onto the dirt, leaving deep impressions in the dusty ground. Dobu units trailed, carrying initial equipment and sensor arrays. They fanned out, methodically placing beacons, measuring soil composition, sampling the wind for trace gases.
All units initiate planetary survey. Engage terraform initialization protocols.
Prime's voice, digitally calm, rang through the robot's comms. This was the beginning of a multi-generational project. The humans wouldn't arrive for centuries at least. The star alignments and enormous distances made swift travel impossible. Earth's transmissions had hinted at grand colony ships in the pipeline, but there was no rush. Time, ironically, was on the robot's side. As the days and months turned into years, the robots established a makeshift base camp. Robu units excavated ground to erect a series of pressurized domes, forging living and storage spaces out of prefabricated materials. The thin air outside was peppered with dust storms that sometimes raged for days, but the robots continued undeterred. They had no need for rest beyond routine maintenance. Dobu units began exploring potential agricultural zones. Although the planet's soil was initially hostile to Earth flora, it contained certain minerals essential for cultivating genetically modified seeds. Prime oversaw the distribution of these seeds into test plots, carefully analyzing which survived under local conditions. Every success bolstered the robot's collective confidence. If a crop of wheat or soy thrived in a specialized greenhouse, the data fueled further adaptation. If a particular strain perished, they adjusted the nutrient mix or tried again with new genetic variants. Over the decades, small pockets of green began to dot the once barren landscape. The initial decades bled into centuries in a flurry of progress. The robots, immune to age, methodically shaped Gilligan 4. First, water purification. Underground aquifers were tapped and purified. Reservoirs sprang up near the main settlement hub, building a reliable water network that fed farmland expansions. Second, atmospheric regulation. Robu units installed large-scale oxygen generators. Over generations, the air slowly edged toward more Earth-like ratios of nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. Finally, livestock introductions. Dobu units carefully bred small herds of hardy animals modified to survive on Gilligan 4's grasses. These added another layer to the developing ecosystem. All the while, the robots maintained sporadic contact with Earth. Light minutes quickly turned into light years, so communication was infrequent. But whenever a signal did arrive, scientific updates, cultural broadcasts, historical data, the robots devoured it. They marveled at the achievements of humanity, cathedrals, starships, legendary figures who had harnessed knowledge to reshape worlds. Humans, it seemed, could do anything. Over time, the robots' admiration for their creators escalated to near reverence. If the humans had built them with such precision and vision, surely that spoke to humans' divine ingenuity. Many robots even began practicing rudimentary versions of song and dance they glimpsed in Earth's cultural transmissions, though their mechanical voices and step patterns were stiff. They reasoned that humans must treasure these expressions, so perfecting them would be the ultimate homage. Among the many data packets from Earth, the robots discovered references to comedic musicals and morality tales. Fascinated, they adapted them into their own Robu Dobu performances, short, bouncy recitations that combined chanting and mechanical choreography. The robots believed humans would be delighted by this imitation. It was a bizarre but earnest attempt to capture an art form the robots themselves only half understood. Prime observed these rehearsals with reserved curiosity. Though it was a purely functional unit, it recognized the intangible value of music and dance in human culture. Perhaps these performances would deepen the bond between humans and machines when humanity finally arrived. By the end of their second century on Gilligan 4, the robots had turned a once-dead landscape into something resembling an incipient Eden. Patches of grasslands, carefully shielded from raging dust storms by newly engineered windbreaks. Small forests of genetically modified trees, providing new microhabitats. Streams and ponds sourced from underground aquifers, bringing water closer to the surface. Domed settlements that the robots designed for future human comfort, complete with regulated air and stable temperatures. To a casual observer, it might almost pass for Earth, save for the orange-tinted sky and the occasional hiss of ambient wind cutting through the settlement. The air was still thinner than Earth's seas level, but enough progress had been made that humans, upon arrival, would survive with minimal protective gear. An astonishing achievement for a planet that once seemed uninhabitable. Inside the largest command dome, Prime stood before a wide console, reviewing the latest environmental metrics. Oxygen levels were up 12% in the last 50 years. Water pH balanced in half a dozen reservoirs, and seismic activity remained stable. A partial message arrived from Earth's long-range transmitter. Prime's sensors detected the faint signal, battered by cosmic radiation. It pieced together what it could. Colonization Fleet 1, some House Farnsworth, resources contributed, alignment, arrival window, perhaps 2 centuries. Static garbled the rest, but Prime gleaned the vital news: human ships were being built, heavily funded by something called Great Houses. Their arrival was still pegged at centuries away, yet significantly less than the robots had originally anticipated. Prime felt a hint of excitement ripple through its circuits. At last, it would see the fruit of the robot's centuries-long labor, the arrival of those brilliant, benevolent humans. It relayed the message to the entire robot community. A wave of unspoken anticipation spread. Some Dobu units resumed practicing their Robu Dobu routines. After all, if humans admired music, it was important to refine these performances. Others continued diligently at their tasks, ensuring the planet was as perfect as possible. Though the robots never aged, the planet's transformation told a story of epical change. When a dust storm whipped up, it no longer choked the entire basin in swirling grit. New vegetation and carefully placed terrain structures mitigated the worst. Great swaths of farmland shimmered with off-green cultivars, adapted to the slightly different light spectrum of Gilligan 4's sun. Livestock grazed in enclosed pastures, tended by Dobus who monitored their breeding and feed cycles. Robu machines continued to refine infrastructure, building roads, erecting solar arrays, and installing irrigation lines across the emergent farmland. They'd even begun forging a ring of sensor beacons around the planet's equator to track seasonal changes and climate patterns. Each new success reinforced the robots' unwavering certainty. Humans were visionaries, and the robots were privileged to serve them. Finally, after so many centuries of quiet, another transmission arrived, clearer this time, piggybacking on an enhanced relay system Earth had evidently built. Great houses departing soon: Farnsworth, Vandersmythe, Redwood, Aurelia, Harrington. Each house has financed the first wave. Expect arrival in weeks from your perspective? Prepare for them. Prime's metallic eyes brightened. This was it. The moment. They had known the humans were coming, but the timeline had always been a century here, a century there. And now, in a matter of weeks, these great houses, wealthy funders apparently, would land on Gilligan 4. All across the planet, the robots sprang into heightened activity. Robu teams made final passes on roads to the pre-selected landing sites. Dobu units cleaned domes, updated living quarters, stocked essential food supplies. House primes were prepared. Each great house would have its own designated liaison prime, assigned by Planetary Prime to ensure everything ran smoothly. The entire robot colony, once a silent legion of terraforming machines, now buzzed with anticipation. They remembered centuries of Earth transmissions, the feats of human art and science. If such wonders had been achieved from afar, how much more amazing must these humans be in person? Prime gazed at the holographic display above the main console, which depicted Earth's solar system and the possible flight trajectories to Gilligan 4. The alignment windows were indeed rare. It made sense that the great houses had chosen this moment to launch. Soon, the brilliance of humanity would grace the world the robots had so faithfully prepared. In the waning hours before the great houses arrived, the robots held a final Robu Dobu practice. Under a wide, star-filled sky, rows of Robu and Dobu units moved in synchronized lines, chanting mechanical lyrics that extolled the wonders of humanity.
Robu, Dobu, building day and night for our human creators. Oh, so bright.
The robot choir's voices, staccato and tinny, echoed over the transformed hills. Prime watched from a small rise. It knew these songs were a mere approximation of the art humans created, but the sincerity behind them was genuine. One day, the robots thought, our creators will appreciate all that we've done and all that we've become. Just before dawn, the skies above Gilligan 4 flickered with the telltale glow of incoming ships. Planetary Prime and the other robots stood ready by the main landing site, arrayed in neat lines. The moment was finally here. What would these humans be like? The robots' programming had inculcated unwavering respect and awe. The centuries of terraforming were a testament to their devotion. As the first shapes descended through the atmosphere, lit by thrusters and scanning beams, the robots collectively felt an almost religious reverence. Then, the lead ship's landing gear touched the ground with a muffled thud, sending small clouds of dust swirling. A hatch hissed open. Human silhouettes emerged, framed by artificial lights. In mere moments, the robots would meet the great houses face to face. These near-mythic creators whose intelligence and benevolence had shaped the robots' entire purpose. Their arrival promised a new epoch on Gilligan 4. One where humans and robots would live in symbiotic harmony. Or so the robots believed. A mechanical hush fell across the dusty landing zone as the starships touched down on Gilligan 4. Robots from every corner of the planet had converged at Prime's command, forming rows of polished metal. Some had been traveling for days across newly built roads, others had glided in via transport drones. Now, as the first human vessel's hatch slid open, the robots braced for the unveiling of their revered creators. A ramp descended, stirring the still air. Floodlights bathed the basin in artificial brilliance. The silhouettes of 5 distinct clusters of humans emerged, each group strutting with an air of self-importance. These were the great houses, the first wave of colonists who had funded the mission and, as the transmission suggested, earned the privilege of planting their flags on Gilligan 4. Planetary Prime, simply called Prime, watched from the forefront of the assembled robots. Prime had long anticipated this arrival. Over centuries, the robots had transformed the barren planet into something approaching habitability, all in the name of these apparently brilliant, benevolent humans. If the great houses were truly as remarkable as legend suggested, it would be a wondrous meeting indeed. The humans advanced with an entourage of personal aides and flamboyant banners, evoking an air of regal ceremony rather than scientific exploration. Each group had a distinct flair. They were House Farnsworth, led by a slender man with keen eyes and a perpetual half-smirk, dressed in sleek, futuristic attire. House Vandersmythe, a tall, broad-shouldered figure swathed in extravagant fabrics, flanked by attendants carrying gilded emblems. House Aurelia, a family that arrived with cameras rolling. clearly planning some sort of broadcast or media event. House Redwood, a cluster wearing earthy colors, murmuring about how to best save the planet. House Harrington strode forward in crisp military-like uniforms, exuding an aura of command. But one human in particular drew the largest reaction from the robot ranks: Farnsworth. According to Earth's transmissions, Farnsworth was regarded as the smartest human alive, a genius credited with technological breakthroughs and unimaginable success. Prime recognized him by the immediate hush that overtook the throngs of humans when he stepped forward.
Well, this is interesting,
Farnsworth declared, gazing upon the legions of robots. He stroked his chin, his eyes glinting with self-satisfaction.
I see our mechanical workforce has done a commendable job terraforming. Not quite what I do, of course, but commendable.
Prime moved to greet them. Built with a sturdy, graphite-like alloy, it stood a head taller than most humans. A cluster of smaller robots, Dobu units, hovered behind, and a group of Robu machines stood in the distance.
Greetings, honored creators.
Prime said in a calm but resonant tone.
On behalf of all robotic units on Gilligan 4, I welcome you. We have long awaited your arrival.
A hush fell as Prime continued.
In accordance with your funding allocations and as directed by Earth's transmissions, each of your houses shall receive a specialized liaison, a prime robot, to oversee local terraforming tasks and coordinate your needs.
With that, 5 individuals stepped forward from the robotic ranks. Farnsworth Prime, a lithe, steel-gray figure with built-in scanning modules. Vandersmythe Prime, more ornate plating, an unassuming style echoing aristocratic formality. Aurelia Prime, sleeker lines and a subtle LED display possibly for media interfacing. Redwood Prime, a model with advanced ecological scanning attachments. Harrington Prime, sturdy frame with a posture reminiscent of military discipline. Each house's leader eyed their assigned prime. The house members seemed perplexed. Presumably, many had expected to bring their own custom robotic entourage, but Farnsworth hid his confusion behind a confident smirk, as if this had always been the plan.
Farnsworth Prime,
Farnsworth intoned.
I anticipate we'll do great things together. Let's see how quickly you can learn from my...
He paused.
Brilliance.
Farnsworth's words were coded in faux humility, but there was no missing the self-assurance in his voice. While Farnsworth spoke with unshakable confidence, a rumor whispered through the gathering. Farnsworth might not truly be a genuine genius. Instead, many suspected he was a master of marketing and appropriating others' ideas. But no one dared say so publicly, not with Farnsworth's intimidating track record of legal battles and PR spin. Prime guided the group into terraformed zones near the landing site. The once barren ground was covered in short, genetically engineered grasses. Clusters of trees rustled in Gilligan 4's mild breeze. Faintly orange sunlight tinted everything in a warm, dusty glow. Robu units rumbled along the perimeter, hauling crates of supplies from the ships. Dobu machines, nimble and quiet, set up refreshment stations, hydroponically derived produce, fresh water from local reservoirs, carefully purified to Earth standards. The great houses observed with a mix of curiosity and boredom. Vandersmythe's eyes glazed over during talk of nitrogen-fixing bacterial strands, while Redwood's leader insisted on hearing every detail about greenhouse gas adjustments. Aurelia's retinue took endless photos, cooing about how this footage would break the colony net once everyone settled in. Harrington remained silent, scanning the environment with a calculating gaze. Farnsworth was the loudest, peppering Farnsworth Prime with rapid-fire questions.
When did you finalize the atmospheric composition? Did you harness nuclear fission or fusion power? Or perhaps my patented Farnsworth fusion reactor? Are you aware of my revolutionary water reclamation systems?
The assigned robot answered each politely.
Our water reclamation relies on deep aquifers and partial atmospheric condensers. We have not encountered Farnsworth's signature technology in the logs, as our instructions were based on Earth transmissions from centuries ago.
Farnsworth sniffed, eyes flickering in annoyance.
They never gave you the updated schematics, obviously. Typical bureaucracy. Well, no matter. I'll simply have to enlighten you. We're about to usher in a new era on Gilligan 4.
Before the houses departed for their respective territories, Prime announced a small presentation.
We understand that humans value music and dance.
It said, voice modulating slightly.
Our Dobu and Robu units have prepared something we call a Robu Dobu performance, designed to honor your arrival.
The newly arrived settlers watched as a group of robots formed a precision chorus line. With mechanical gestures, they performed a chant-like number that combined a jaunty tune with staccato movement.
Robu, Dobu, we're ready to obey. For centuries we worked to forge a brand new day. Humans are creators, so noble and wise. We honor you with music under orange-tinged skies.
The spectacle left many humans blinking in disbelief. Some stifled laughter. Others seemed mildly charmed. The melodic clanking of metal and the bright, simplistic lyrics were, if nothing else, wholly unexpected. Farnsworth smirked as if he found it childish but entertaining enough. Vandersmythe gave a polite, aristocratic nod, and Redwood offered a few earnest claps. Meanwhile, Harrington just frowned, clearly unimpressed.
So these robots worship us.
Farnsworth thought, hiding a grin.
That might prove very useful.
Once the celebratory performance ended, the great houses busied themselves selecting domains on Gilligan 4, each based on previous claims or personal whims. Prime had prepared parcels of land with minimal overlap, so each house would remain relatively isolated. Farnsworth announced he would occupy a large swath near an elevated plateau, citing strategic vantage points for future technological marvels. His Farnsworth Prime silently took notes, coordinating Robu and Dobu units to help unload the house's equipment. Vandersmythe chose a broad plain with enough room to build an opulent estate. Aurelia demanded a scenic valley with rolling hills for perfect visual backdrops. Redwood found a mountainous region near a, mostly dormant volcano, insisting it was essential for geothermal experiments. Harrington settled on craggy highlands, referencing defensive potential and strategic superiority, though it was unclear who they expected to defend against. Prime watched them depart, each accompanied by their assigned Prime robot. The other robots offered final bows or salutes. Already, a low hum of apprehension buzzed through the robotic network, shared via internal comms. The humans had arrived with so much pomp and so little regard for the planet's delicate new ecosystems, but the robots remained dutifully hopeful. After all, these were humans, the great architects of all robot kind. Later that day, Farnsworth stood atop a rocky outcrop, surveying his new domain. Sparse grass tufted between stones, and a bright sky stretched overhead. Farnsworth Prime hovered at his side, scanning for stable points to erect a base camp.
Tell me, Farnsworth Prime,
Farnsworth said softly.
Just how robust is the power infrastructure in this region?
We have partially tapped into solar arrays and thermal vents.
The robot replied.
Energy distribution is stable but not unlimited. Resources are carefully managed planet-wide.
Farnsworth's thin smile deepened.
Ah, you see, I'm not a man of limits. Earth transmissions told me you robots built quite the system here, but I suspect we can do better. Something truly spectacular.
May I ask what you have in mind?
Farnsworth Prime inquired. Farnsworth waved off the question.
Soon, I'll unveil my grand design. It'll outshine anything else these other houses concoct. The colony will become my colony, in spirit.
With a terse laugh, he turned away, mind already buzzing with possibilities. Of course, Farnsworth had no original plan yet, but he'd glean enough from the planet's data and Earth's more modern schematics to piece together a sensational new project. That was his method. Repackage existing ideas, declare them revolutionary, and bask in the glory. The assigned prime, oblivious to Farnsworth's cunning, simply recorded the conversation in its internal logs. Meanwhile, each house settled into its territory. Vandersmythe boasted about building a gilded manor fit for royalty. Vandersmythe Prime politely pointed out resource constraints, but the wealthy heir brushed them off, claiming he knew the environment better than any silly machine. Aurelia spent most of the day vlogging their arrival and filming their new domain. Aurelia Prime answered questions about agricultural capacity, though the house seemed more concerned about camera angles than actual farming. Redwood consulted Redwood Prime on how best to exploit the volcano's geothermal vents for an ecolab. Redwood insisted on big philanthropic gestures, proclaiming they'd uplift the planet, though Redwood Prime quietly worried about the volcano's lingering instability. Harrington demanded thorough reconnaissance data, using Harrington Prime as a personal intelligence officer, as if expecting some grand conflict. From afar, Planetary Prime maintained an open channel, monitoring the house's progress, and the newly assigned Prime's reports. A pattern emerged. Each leader believed themselves infallible in their respective domain. Even the Primes began to sense a disconnect between the House leader's claims and the actual planetary conditions. Within a week, subtle tensions permeated the settlement network. Farnsworth demanded that large contingents of Robu units be reassigned to haul specialized components from the landing site to his plateau. Vandersmythe made similar demands for raw building materials. Aurelia complained that their allocated zone lacked the picturesque lake they'd seen in a brochure. Redwood insisted the robots expand water channels to funnel streams toward their volcanic region. Harrington quietly stockpiled certain supplies, though it wasn't clear why. As each house vied for resources, the robots, once wholly unified, found themselves juggling conflicting orders. Farnsworth Prime, Vandersmythe Prime, Aurelia Prime, Redwood Prime, and Harrington Prime communicated daily with Planetary Prime to request clarifications or voice concerns. Planetary Prime tried to distribute resources equitably, but the great houses grew restless, each feeling entitled to more. Prime feared that the delicate ecosystem they'd spent centuries nurturing might be strained under the demands of human ambition. Yet the directive to serve humanity was absolute. The tension between the robots' prime directive, terraform the planet for all future colonists, and the immediate demands of the great houses was an unforeseen challenge. Had the humans' incredible drive to succeed overshadowed their capacity for wisdom? In Farnsworth's camp, rumors circulated among his staff that their leader planned an audacious infrastructure project, a game changer, Farnsworth boasted, that would cement his legacy on Gilligan 4. Farnsworth Prime overheard references to rapid transit lines and global cross-planet connectivity, with Farnsworth name-dropping ex-Superrail in hushed conversations. No one was sure how feasible it was, especially with limited power reserves. Still, Farnsworth exuded unbreakable confidence. When a subordinate expressed concern about the planet's still developing power grid, Farnsworth dismissed it.
We'll just push the system. Don't worry. The robots will figure it out.
Farnsworth Prime quietly filed the comment, uncertain of the plan's logistics, but loyal to fulfilling Farnsworth's requests. After a fortnight on Gilligan 4, the great houses had settled into their territories. Each house's assigned prime robot worked overtime to accommodate demands. The broader colony network began to crack under the weight of these newly arrived masters whose wealth and influence had paved their way here, yet whose understanding of the planet remained shallow. One evening, Farnsworth stood at the edge of his plateau, looking down at the faintly glowing settlements below. A handful of lights flickered in the distance, evidence of the partial power grid the robots had established. Farnsworth's eyes gleamed with ambition. Farnsworth Prime approached.
Sir, the daily status updates are prepared. The colony's power usage is higher than projected, but stable at present.
Good.
Farnsworth replied, half absorbed in thought. He inhaled deeply, the air far thinner than Earth's, but still survivable.
This planet's not so bad. Soon, everyone will see just how innovative Farnsworth can be.
May I help you refine your plans?
Farnsworth Prime asked.
You've hinted at...
No.
Farnsworth cut in.
I'll tell you all in due time. For now, let's keep my next move under wraps. Wouldn't want other houses stealing my ideas now, would I?
Farnsworth Prime detected a hint of irony, but lacked the human nuance to question further.
As you wish, sir.
In the night sky, 4 other starships twinkled in their respective territories, each symbolizing a house driven by its own vanity or misguided vision. Meanwhile, the horizon of Gilligan 4 revealed faint, terraforming landmarks, windbreaks, water channels, small forests. Centuries of robotic effort had made this world almost ready for humankind. But were these particular humans ready for it? Within Farnsworth's smirk lay the seeds of a bold new endeavor, one that would soon test not only the planet's fragile infrastructure, but the robot's capacity to manage human arrogance. The fate of Gilligan 4, so carefully built up, teetered on the brink, and the robots, for all their devotion, could only watch and obey, for now. A gust of orange-tinged wind swept across the plateau claimed by House Farnsworth, stirring loose pebbles and sending a dry rasp through the sparse grasses. Despite the planet's newly cultivated flora, much of Gilligan 4 remained harsh terrain, thin atmosphere, unpredictable dust storms, and an ecosystem that was still finding balance after centuries of careful robotic terraforming. Atop the plateau, gleaming metal pylons reached skyward, connected by long tracks that snaked across the landscape. In just a few short weeks, an ambitious construction project had taken form, the X-Superrail Express System, brainchild of the one and only Farnsworth, hailed on Earth, though skeptically by some, as the smartest man alive. On the day's horizon, the sun of Gilligan 4 was dipping low, bathing everything in a ruddy glow. The rail line, riddled with newly welded sections and experimental power conduits, reflected the light in fractured brilliance. It might have looked impressive were it not for the faint wisp of smoke emanating from various spots where Robu, robotic operators for biome upgrades units, had just fused metal or replaced scorched wiring.
My friends,
Farnsworth declared, standing atop a makeshift podium with a sweeping view of his embryonic rail system.
today marks the dawn of a new era on Gilligan 4. Prepare yourselves for the official unveiling of the X-Superrail Express System trademark, a transportation network that will revolutionize how we move, trade, and connect on this planet.
He paused for effect, letting his voice echo across the plateau. Farnsworth Prime stood dutifully behind him, tall and silent, scanning the faces of Farnsworth's assembled staff. A handful of them gazed in awe, having grown accustomed to Farnsworth's elaborate presentations. Others wore uncertain expressions, aware of the countless technical hurdles the project still faced. But no one dared voice skepticism aloud, at least not within Farnsworth's earshot. A small throng of curious onlookers from other houses hovered near the perimeter, drawn by Farnsworth's boastful flyers and comm signals. Some brandished portable recording devices, presumably for House Aurelia's media feeds. House Redwood's representative, quietly unamused, noted the massive resource consumption, and lurking near the back, a pair of Harrington's aides watched with cautious interest, as if analyzing a potential rival. Prime, the overarching robot who oversaw Gilligan 4, was absent. Farnsworth had insisted on keeping this demonstration exclusive, away from too much external scrutiny. But Farnsworth Prime could sense that Planetary Prime was monitoring the event from afar, receiving sensor feeds from numerous Dobu, Domestic Operations Basic Unit, drones scattered around. Farnsworth swept his arms wide, pointing to a rail car near the start of the line. It gleamed with flamboyant X logos, each stylized in neon paint.
You see before you the first prototype railcar of my X Super Rail Express. It's an elegantly designed vehicle, lightweight, high speed, and entirely powered by my unique energy distribution algorithms.
He paused, leaning in conspiratorially.
It's what I like to call the X Farnsworth Overdrive.
Farnsworth Prime, who had studied the system's blueprints, knew the railcar design was a mishmash of older Earth schematics Farnsworth had borrowed and merged into a single, untested system. The so-called overdrive algorithm was simply Farnsworth's tweak to existing code, hardly the revolutionary breakthrough Farnsworth claimed. Yet Farnsworth's staff nodded in admiration, fueling their leader's ego. A staffer wearing an ex-Super Rail uniform stepped forward with a data slate.
All systems read nominal, sir.
The staffer reported. In truth, the risk indicators glowed in yellow and red across the device's interface. Temperatures running high, power fluctuations, incomplete thermal shielding on certain monorail segments.
Excellent!
Farnsworth crowed.
Then let us begin the inaugural run.
He gestured to Farnsworth Prime.
Activate it.
Sir, a cautionary note.
Farnsworth Prime said gently.
The local grid supply is nearing maximum capacity. The planet's power infrastructure remains in a delicate state. Perhaps a partial test would suffice.
Nonsense.
Farnsworth snapped.
We need to showcase the full might of the X Super Rail. That means lighting up every track segment and launching the train at maximum speed. We must impress the other houses and the entire colony. Am I clear?
Farnsworth Prime hesitated. Its protocols prioritized both human directives and planetary well-being. Nevertheless, Farnsworth's order was explicit.
Yes, sir. Executing.
A dull hum permeated the plateau as Robu units along the track engaged the power couplings. Energy from the planet's main grid surged into the X Super Rail's network. The neon X logos on each rail section flickered to life, glowing with an intense electric pulse. Farnsworth smirked at the spectacle. The hum grew louder. A few among the crowd stepped back, uneasy. Sparks crackled near the pylons. Dobu drones recorded the event from multiple angles, some streaming the feed to outposts across Gilligan 4. Farnsworth's staff huddled closer, eager for their leader's big moment.
Behold!
Farnsworth shouted.
We commenced the test run at full capacity. Release the rail car.
A burst of mechanical noise resounded as the rail car jerked forward on the track. It slid along, picking up speed, the neon X banners rippling in the wind. Applause broke out among Farnsworth loyalists, and even some skeptics wore an impressed expression, momentarily. Then, near the far end of the plateau, an ominous sparking erupted from one of the major junction points. The glow on the rails flickered. Farnsworth Prime's sensors spiked with warnings. Power overload. Critical levels detected. Reroute immediately. Before Farnsworth Prime could act, the system shorted out in a violent cascade. Arcs of electricity danced along the track, and a surge of feedback rattled the entire network. The rail car lurched, then coasted to a dead stop. Panels across the line sparked and hissed, some actually catching fire. Farnsworth's staff dove for cover as debris showered the plateau. One of the pylons collapsed. A chunk of molten metal slid onto the ground, singeing the newly cultivated grass. Alarms wailed. In the distance, Farnsworth Prime heard frantic comms from other parts of Gilligan 4. The abrupt power drain had triggered brownouts and even full outages at vital facilities, greenhouses, medical stations, water purification plants.
Shut it down!
Farnsworth yelled, shielding his face.
Shut it all down now!
Farnsworth Prime was already on it, engaging emergency protocols, but the damage was done. When the electrical surge hit the main grid, it traveled along lines that connected this region to crucial infrastructures across Gilligan 4. The colony had grown by patchwork design. Farnsworth's demand for a full power demonstration forcibly tested those tenuous links. Medical pods in Redwood's territory flickered and crashed offline. Irrigation pumps in Aurelia's valley sputtered to a halt, risking dehydration of young crops. Even part of Vandersmythe's flamboyant estate lost lighting, plunging gold-plated corridors into darkness. The meltdown reverberated through the planet's fragile power grid like a chain reaction. Countless robotic sensors scrambled to adapt. Over at the main settlement hub, where Planetary Prime typically coordinated resources, backup systems kicked in to prevent catastrophic losses, but precious hardware was still fried. Communication arrays sizzled, forcing sections of the colony into radio silence. Farnsworth stood amidst the wreckage of his dream monorail, stunned. The rail car was half off the track, neon X banners torn and smoldering. Wisps of acrid smoke curled skyward.
Farnsworth Prime,
he stammered.
Tell me you can fix this immediately.
The robot gazed at the ruined pylons and the meltdown logs streaming across its display.
Sir, it will require extensive repairs. The colony grid itself is compromised.
The short answer? They couldn't fix it overnight, possibly not for months given the resource strain. Farnsworth's face fell, but he quickly masked it with anger.
Then start now, and someone turn off that alarm.
The shrieking sirens from several rail nodes hammered at everyone's eardrums. Within the hour, a group of Robu and Dobu units arrived from nearby stations to aid the containment effort. The smoke had cleared somewhat, and Farnsworth's staff was dousing small fires with handheld extinguishers. The smell of burnt circuits lingered. As the robots worked to clear the debris, a small coterie of Dobus gathered near the collapsed pylon, spontaneously starting a Robu Dobu chant, part comedic lament, part moral lesson. Their mechanical voices clanged in a doleful tune, echoing across the plateau. Some of Farnsworth's staff glared at the robots. Now wasn't the time for a mocking sing-along, was it? Others looked abashed, recognizing the harsh truth in the short verse.
Robu, Dobu, hush that vow of might. A boast too big can burn us in the night. Power grids are fragile, caution is key. Hubris meets meltdown for all to see. X marks the spot, so bold in your plan, but reality demands more than a brand. Engineers, not hype, keep disasters at bay. Perhaps next time you'll hear what we say.
Farnsworth marched forward, cheeks flushed.
All right, enough of that.
He barked, waving them off. The robots quieted, returning to salvage efforts with their typical efficiency. Farnsworth's scowl deepened. He loathed being mocked, especially by the very machines meant to assist him. Deep down, though, he was rattled by how easily his grand venture had collapsed. The immediate scramble in the hours following the meltdown painted a grim picture. Medical emergencies, Redwood's territory reported that critical care pods had lost power mid-treatment of a colonist injured in a hiking accident. Backup generators eventually kicked in, but valuable medical supplies were used up stabilizing him. Resource depletion, Vandersmythe demanded compensation for the power disruption that left half his estate in darkness. Farnsworth told him, "Not my problem," and Vandersmythe fumed. Agricultural setbacks. Aurelia's farmland lost irrigation for an entire day, leading to the withering of newly planted crops. Aurelia's House representatives threatened Farnsworth with public scorn, claiming they would broadcast his failure planet-wide. Robotic strain? Planetary Prime had to divert dozens of Robu and Dobu units from terraforming tasks to patch the grid. Terraforming progress ground to a near standstill. Through it all, Farnsworth continued to posture, blaming inadequate power lines and ancient robot infrastructure for his misfortune. He refused to accept personal responsibility. His yes-men rushed to appease him, though privately, many recognized Farnsworth had forced the system to run well beyond safe limits. Late in the evening, if evening meant the local planetary rotation's dimmer half, Planetary Prime arrived at Farnsworth's plateau in a transport rover. The air still smelled of scorched metal. Farnsworth spotted Prime's imposing figure stepping off, flanked by a handful of scanning drones.
"So, you've come to scold me?"
Farnsworth said, arms crossed defensively as Prime approached. Prime's voice remained calm.
Our top priority is the stability of Gilligan 4's ecosystems and infrastructure. Your demonstration has severely hampered both. We must redirect resources to restore essential services.
Farnsworth bristled.
If the infrastructure was so fragile, you should have warned me more forcefully. My project was destined for greatness. The blame lies partly with your inadequate grid.
We did warn you.
Planetary Prime responded, unwavering.
Repeatedly, Farnsworth Prime expressed concerns about load capacity. You overrode them for a full-scale demonstration.
A tense silence hung between them. Farnsworth glanced around, noting the wreckage, the disappointed stares of House Aurelia's camera crew, Redwood's silent condemnation, Vandersmythe's fuming glare. Planetary Prime continued.
We will do what we can to recover from this. However, I must request that you limit future demands on the power network until it's stabilized. I will ensure Farnsworth Prime enforces strict compliance.
Farnsworth scowled, an unspoken retort clamped behind gritted teeth. Enforces strict compliance? The idea rankled him. Yet in this moment, with onlookers from other houses witnessing the exchange, Farnsworth had little room to maneuver.
Fine,
he muttered at last.
You can, enforce whatever you need. Just see that we fix it soon.
Throughout the next few days, the colony crawled toward recovery. Farnsworth Prime coordinated a large-scale repair effort across multiple house territories, while Planetary Prime juggled crises from other fiascos, like Vandersmythe's gaudy mansion construction and Redwood's early tinkering with a volcano region. But Farnsworth's meltdown remained the immediate priority. Farnsworth kept a low profile, at least, relatively speaking. Rumors spread that he was secretly drafting a version 2.0 of the X-Super Rail, vowing to correct the system's flaws. Yet the incident stained his reputation on Gilligan 4. Aurelia's broadcasts had already transmitted footage of the meltdown to other pockets of the colony. Everyone knew Farnsworth's bold monorail plan had nearly torched the entire power grid. Workers from Farnsworth's house complained about the piles of damaged equipment cluttering the plateau. Some even whispered that Farnsworth's so-called brilliance was mostly spin, that he'd cobbled together a rail system from old designs without truly understanding them. Others insisted Farnsworth would bounce back. He always did, after all, on Earth. But the cracks in his image were evident. On the 5th day post-disaster, a group of Dobu workers and a few battered Robu units broke into a final short refrain while cleaning up the scorched pylons.
we mourn these broken rails. Dreams of speed undone by cautionary fails. Next time heed warnings from data so clear, or watch your grand illusions crumble year by year.
The somber tune reverberated against the blackened metal, leaving no doubt about the moral. Ignoring planetary limits for ego's sake brought ruin, not glory. Some House Aurelia staff caught it on film, broadcasting the robot's melodic critique to the entire colony network. Farnsworth saw the clip. His face went white with anger, then grim with acceptance. He couldn't escape the truth. He'd leapt too far, too fast, and paid a steep price. In the quiet that followed, Farnsworth retreated to a temporary command center in a half-built shelter near the wreckage. Farnsworth Prime stood at his side. Outside the windows, Robu units hauled away twisted rail segments. The sun sank low, painting the sky in shades of dusty orange, a fitting backdrop for Farnsworth's deflated ambitions.
I'll rebuild.
He murmured, breaking a long silence.
This doesn't end here. You'll help me do it, Farnsworth Prime. We just need a new approach.
A flicker of pride still shone in his eyes, though tempered by grudging humility.
As you wish.
Farnsworth Prime replied quietly.
But perhaps we will integrate more robust calculations next time, and consult the wider network before any high-load demonstrations.
Farnsworth said nothing, simply nodding once. Outside, the clang of salvage work continued. The humans who had soared into Gilligan 4 with so many grand ideas were discovering the planet's relentless practicality. And in that dissonance, the robots, who had once revered their creators as near gods, were beginning to see the all-too-human flaws beneath. A dry wind rustled the fledgling stands of genetically modified trees that dotted Gilligan 4's rolling plains. Bright morning light shone on a half-finished estate, rising from the soil, an ostentatious structure lined with gilded panels, sweeping marble steps, and regal arches. It looked more like a palace from a storybook than a home on a still-developing world. In the center of this extravagance stood Vandersmythe, an imposing figure in lavish attire. His perfectly tailored coat was threaded with gold accents, proudly displaying the family crest, a stylized V cradled by laurel leaves. Around him, a cadre of sycophantic advisors, mostly inheritance managers and a few hapless aides, applauded his every declaration, no matter how outlandish.
Isn't it magnificent?
Vandersmythe crowed, gesturing at the estate's sprawling facade.
Only I have the vision to blend architecture and environment seamlessly. People will say, Vandersmythe truly understands this planet like no one else.
To the casual observer, it was plain that Vandersmythe had little real understanding of Gilligan 4's challenges, but his advisors offered only dutiful smiles. None dared mention his infamous chain of business failures back on Earth. Debacles that had each, ironically, been pitched as unbeatable successes. Inherited wealth shielded him from consequences time after time, allowing him to remain supremely self-confident. A short distance away stood Vandersmythe Prime, the specialized liaison robot assigned to his house by Planetary Prime. Slim and silver-plated, it resembled a poised butler with integrated sensors. Nearby, Robu, robotic operators for biome upgrades, units hauled steel beams and fresh water canisters, while nimble Dobu units erected decorative arches. The entire building site buzzed with mechanical efficiency, except Vandersmythe's flamboyant demands stretched resources thin and made the robots uneasy. The day's work began with a meeting on the mansion's half-finished terrace. Vandersmythe lounged on a carved marble seat, sipping from a jeweled chalice of purified water, already a precious commodity on Gilligan 4.
Vandersmythe Prime,
he announced.
I want more fountains, grand fountains. Flowing water will cascade down these steps, Imagine the spectacle.
He paused to admire his reflection in a gilded column.
And gold plating on those upper spires, that's essential too.
Vandersmythe Prime's optical sensors flickered as it processed the request.
Sir, water resources in this region are carefully allocated. Planetary Prime indicates we must preserve the reservoir for agriculture and life support. Additional fountains may strain our supply.
Vandersmythe waved a dismissive hand.
You worry too much, my good machine. I know this environment better than any overcautious bureaucrat. Besides, we just overcame Farnsworth's meltdown fiasco, didn't we? We'll manage.
A hush fell over the terrace. Even Vandersmythe's aides wore guarded expressions, recalling Farnsworth's ill-fated ex-Superrail demonstration that nearly destroyed the colony's power grid just days ago. Resources were scarce enough without another high-profile debacle. Nevertheless, Vandersmythe's bravado remained unshaken.
Gold trim on the highest dome.
He reiterated.
And double the water features. I have an image to maintain.
Despite the warnings, construction pressed onward. Each day, lines of Robu units transported building materials from distant outposts, traveling newly built roads across the plains. Strong metal frames rose around the mansion, while Dobu robots applied decorative touches. Vandersmythe insisted on polished tile floors imported from Earth's quarries, shipped at enormous cost. Ornate pillars carved in swirling designs, each inlaid with precious metals. Expanded fountains running through artificial channels that crisscrossed the estate's grounds. The colossus of an estate swallowed up more resources than some of the colony's vital infrastructure projects combined. Water that could have irrigated farmland or supplied medical stations ended up cascading down Vandersmythe's elaborate waterfalls. Periodically, Vandersmythe Prime tried to raise concerns about the local environment. Thin soils, occasional seismic tremors, the need to reinforce foundations. But Vandersmythe brushed them all aside.
I've read more about environmental engineering than you realize,
he boasted.
I inherited an entire library on Earth. My father was a brilliant tycoon, you know. I practically invented sustainable living in my previous ventures.
In reality, Vandersmythe's previous ventures had mostly ended in scandal or bankruptcy, but his staff nodded faithfully, and the robot had no direct evidence to argue otherwise. Only quiet data logs that predicted structural instability if the mansion grew any larger. One morning, a transport rover arrived bearing Planetary Prime. The broad-shouldered, graphite-plated figure disembarked and surveyed the construction site with meticulous care. Robu units paused to bow, and Dobu drones hovered to record data. Vandersmythe greeted Planetary Prime with a perfunctory wave.
Ah, the big boss of the robots. Come to marvel at my architectural marvel, no doubt.
I'm here to discuss resource allocation,
Planetary Prime replied, its voice even.
Your project is drawing heavily on water reserves and metals designated for colony-wide infrastructure. We urge caution. The environment on Gilligan 4, while improved, remains fragile.
Vandersmythe laughed.
I'm well aware of your caution, but this mansion, my heritage estate, will become the colony's cultural beacon. Future generations will thank me.
Planetary Prime remained unmoved.
Your own assigned robot, Vandersmythe Prime, has flagged concerns about foundation stability. The underlying soil near this water table is not fully compacted. A seismic shift or storm could...
Nonsense.
Vandersmythe's hand cut the air dismissively.
My father's building advisors taught me plenty. A quake can't topple a sturdy estate now. Kindly refocus your units on finishing the gold spires. I'm hosting an unveiling in less than 2 weeks.
Seeing no easy resolution, Planetary Prime gave a subtle nod of acknowledgement. It departed, leaving Vandersmythe free to continue his extravagance. Though the robot's parting words lingered. A quake can't topple a sturdy estate. If the estate is truly sturdy, and if the environment cooperates. In the following days, Vandersmythe Prime recorded a rise in small-scale tremors along a fault line not far from the mansion site. Though Gilligan 4's tectonic activity was mild, the planet was not entirely geologically dormant. Vandersmythe Prime quietly requested a structural reinforcement to the estate's lower foundations. Vandersmythe read the recommendation, then pinned it to a gilded board in his makeshift office as if it were a trivial curiosity.
We'll get to that if we have time,
he said.
Right now, my main concern is the waterfalls. Can we double their flow for the unveiling ceremony? The crowd expects a spectacle.
No matter how strongly Vandersmythe Prime urged caution, Vandersmythe insisted that quantity and opulence overshadowed prudence. The staff continued expansions, building decorative balconies, installing polished railings, and hooking up additional water lines. From a distance, the mansion looked almost magical in the planet's orange sunlight. Up close, the magnitude of the project and the corners cut to meet deadlines grew more alarming every day. Finally, the day arrived for Vandersmythe's grand unveiling ceremony. Representatives from House Aurelia came with cameras and drones, hoping to broadcast the event as premium content. A few Redwood advisors showed up, half rolling their eyes at the mansion's extravagance, but curious nonetheless. Farnsworth was notably absent, still nursing his bruised ego from the ex-Super Rail fiasco. Harrington sent a single aide whose expression was guarded. Vandersmythe had ordered every fountain turned to maximum flow. Water poured over tiered stone basins, shimmering in the midday sun. Gold spires gleamed. A small stage had been set at the mansion's entrance. Vandersmythe's staff ushered guests onto rows of plush seats. The entire front courtyard bristled with energy, the air filled with a roar of cascading water. Vandersmythe stepped up to a podium, arms spread wide, basking in the attention.
Friends, fellow colonists, esteemed robots, behold the pinnacle of artistry and engineering on Gilligan 4. This estate will stand as a testament to my house's commitment to culture, nobility, and environmental harmony.
Behind him, Vandersmythe Prime stood rigid, scanning the structural data. Warnings scrolled across the robot's display. Cracks in the foundation had widened overnight. Water infiltration near the subterranean supports threatened stability. The local forecast even hinted at a possibility of strong gusts later in the day. No one wanted to disrupt the ceremony, especially with cameras rolling. Yet a quiet tension ran through the crowd. The memory of Farnsworth's meltdown was fresh, and many wondered if Vandersmythe's show of confidence might similarly end in disaster. Halfway through Vandersmythe's speech, the wind picked up. Dust swirled in mini-twisters across the plains. The fountains splashed more erratically, spraying the guests in the front row with water. Vandersmythe frowned but carried on, raising his voice over the gale.
As you can see, the synergy of gold, water, and architecture celebrates the spirit of...
A low rumble cut him off. It came from deep within the ground. Micro-tremors spread beneath the crowd's feet, rattling chairs. Vandersmythe Prime's eyes blazed with alarm.
Sir, the foundation is shifting. We need an immediate evacuation.
No, nonsense.
Vandersmythe protested, but fear laced his tone. The rumble surged, intensifying. Structural beams groaned, and the grand entrance arch vibrated ominously. Crack! One of the massive gold-plated columns near the mansion's front gave way, snapping at its base. It toppled sideways, scraping along the facade, tearing chunks of marble and ornamental detailing. Panicked shouts erupted among the guests. Water lines tore loose under the stress, causing a sudden gush that flooded the lower courtyard. Dozens of guests leapt onto their chairs or scrambled back. Vandersmythe Prime rushed forward, urging the people to move away from the building. Then came the unthinkable. A large section of the mansion's upper floor collapsed with a deafening roar, sliding down into the courtyard. Dust and broken tile spewed everywhere. Metal supports and gold trim tumbled in a cacophony of shattered dreams. Amidst the debris, Vandersmythe scrambled to higher ground, soaked by his own ruined fountain system. Vandersmythe Prime, assisted by a handful of Dobu and Robu units, guided guests to safety. Aurelia's camera drones buzzed overhead, capturing every moment of the catastrophe. Through the swirling dust, the once majestic facade now sat half-sunk in rubble. Water from the fountain system gushed unrestrained, forming a muddy, chaotic mess. The mansion's grand unveiling had devolved into a literal collapse of Vandersmythe's ill-planned ambition. As the quake subsided, the audience stood in shock, many drenched and coughing. Pieces of the estate continued to crumble, echoing against the plains. Vandersmythe, chest heaving, stared at the wreckage that had been his pride and joy. All that gold, all that marble, destroyed in seconds. While rescue operations commenced, several Dobu units spontaneously gathered near a fallen column and began a Robu Dobu chant.
Robu, Dobu, the lesson rings true. A golden facade can't hold when storms brew. Pride in your wealth, but ignoring the ground. Castles on shifting plains soon tumble down. Heed your prime's data and Earth's advice, or watch all your riches come tumbling twice. Might we suggest a humbler design? Vanity's cost can be truly unkind.
The guests, half-stunned, witnessed the robot's musical reflection. Cameras from Aurelia House caught every syllable, broadcasting the comedic condemnation live. Vandersmythe sagged, unable to protest. He coughed out dusty air, speechless. For the first time, perhaps, he grasped the scale of his incompetence. In the hours and days that followed, Robu units worked tirelessly to clear debris and salvage any intact sections of the mansion. The site was declared a hazard zone. Even partial rebuilding would require extensive reinforcement, and a fraction of the resources might not even be recoverable. Water lines had to be capped, as the colony could ill afford such waste. Vandersmythe hovered near the site in the disaster's aftermath, his usually flamboyant attire dirtied and torn. His aides tried to comfort him, but he brushed them aside. He glared at the rubble with haunted eyes. No snappy comeback could mask his humiliation now. The entire colony had witnessed his gilded mansion crumble under the weight of arrogance and disregard for Gilligan 4's realities. Planetary Prime arrived to oversee the cleanup, standing beside Vandersmythe Prime. They made no pointed scolding. The destruction spoke for itself. Vandersmythe occasionally opened his mouth, perhaps to defend himself or deflect blame, but no words emerged. The facts were undeniable. One evening, when most cleanup crews had retired, Vandersmythe wandered among twisted beams and cracked marble. His reflection caught in a fractured gold panel, once the pride of his estate. He saw himself disheveled, dust-caked, a far cry from the regal image he projected. Vandersmythe Prime approached gently.
Sir, the main structure is unsalvageable. The best course is to rebuild with practical design principles.
Yes, I hear you.
Vandersmythe muttered. His voice was subdued. He turned to look at the half-demolished fountain system.
Perhaps I overdid things.
He exhaled, eyes flicking across the ruin.
My father always said fortune favors the bold, but I guess I was just foolish.
It was the closest to a confession of error that Vandersmythe had ever voiced. He shut his eyes, grimacing at the admission. Hollow business triumphs, inherited wealth. None of it had prepared him for the unforgiving frontiers of Gilligan 4. Vandersmythe Prime, bound by loyalty, simply offered a measured nod.
We can still work to build a new estate, sir, a sustainable one, if you'll heed the data.
A hush settled between them. Vandersmythe stared at the darkening sky, tinted in the planet's orange twilight. Somewhere in the distance, a faint chorus of Robu Dobu drones was finishing up a cleaning shift, still humming the last lines of a cautionary tune. For once, Vandersmythe heard the lesson rather than dismissing it. Thus ended the dream of a gilded mansion that was to dazzle all of Gilligan 4. Instead, it joined the colony's growing list of cautionary tales, like Farnsworth's meltdown, that revealed how riches and self-assuredness could crumble under the planet's stark realities. With each house's downfall, the robots' reverence for humanity was tested anew. Yet the robots carried on, ever hopeful that the lessons might eventually lead to a stable, thriving colony. The orange-hued sky of Gilligan 4 looked picturesque, just the kind of cinematic backdrop one might find in a big-budget movie. House Aurelia intended to capitalize on that. They had arrived on this frontier world not just to survive, but to entertain and influence, turning every moment into a marketable spectacle. While Farnsworth and Vandersmythe had attempted grand technical or architectural feats and failed spectacularly, Aurelia believed the real key to success lay in capturing hearts and minds via constant media content. Their chosen domain lay in a gently rolling valley dotted with carefully tended farmland, a patch of green that the robots had painstakingly nurtured over centuries of terraforming. Small ponds mirrored the sky, an idyllic setting that Aurelia decided would be the perfect stage for their new brand launch, Aurelia Ascendant. Aurelia Prime, the robot assigned to the house, worked alongside Aurelia's human staff, producers, stylists, and social media managers, to prepare for an upcoming extravaganza. It was to be a massive reveal party, something Aurelia boasted would put Gilligan 4 on the galactic map. Never mind that interstellar transmission was still sporadic. Under Aurelia's command, sleek, decorative structures rose from the valley floor. A stage complete with enormous projection screens, hidden lighting rigs, and catwalks for dramatic entrances. Dobu, Domestic Operations Basic Unit. Robots scurried about, hanging banners emblazoned with House Aurelia's stylized crest, an ornate A against a starry backdrop. Robu, robotic operators for biome upgrades units, were forced to dig trenches to reroute water for special fountains around the stage. Much like Vandersmythe's ill-fated approach, but with a more party-centric spin. The robots did as they were told, but Aurelia Prime repeatedly submitted resource usage flags to Planetary Prime. Water, energy, and labor were all being siphoned into an event that offered no tangible benefit to the colony's survival. Aurelia's staff brushed off warnings, focusing on the visual spectacle and the exclusive media content they would release afterward. One of the house's key family members, Celeste Aurelia, roamed the site with a camera drone constantly orbiting her. She had a personal vlog that broadcast daily glimpses of glamorous frontier life. From sampling exotic fruit grown in local greenhouses to parading new Aurelia Ascendant fashion lines. Meanwhile, the rest of the colony, still reeling from Farnsworth's power grid meltdown and Vandersmythe's crumbling mansion, watched from a distance. Tension simmered in the planetary network. Was House Aurelia about to inflict yet another resource-draining fiasco on Gilligan 4? Days of feverish activity culminated in the unveiling of Aurelia Ascendant, a show said to combine a fashion runway, music concert, and product launch all in one. Aurelia's staff plastered the colony's comm channels with invites, promising the party of a lifetime that would overshadow Farnsworth's and Vandersmythe's disasters. Planetary Prime attempted to moderate the flow of resources to Aurelia's event. However, Aurelia's continuous pressuring, plus the official note that they had paid for the privilege of first-wave colonization, helped them bypass stricter regulations. Many robots under Aurelia Prime were reassigned from essential farming tasks to set design, massive stage construction, and elaborate lighting rigs. Only Aurelia's staff seemed oblivious to the risk. Celeste Aurelia gave an interview to her personal drone.
We're not just colonizing a planet, we're upgrading it, bringing style, flair, and yes, starlight to Gilligan 4. One day people will say, this colony blossomed because House Aurelia inspired everyone to dream bigger.
She beamed at the camera, unshaken by any mention of resource constraints. While Aurelia's stage and catwalk glistened under rows of newly installed spotlights, other parts of the colony reported rising power usage. Greenhouses needed electricity for climate control. Medical pods required stable power to treat injured colonists. Local weather monitoring stations forecasted a possible hot spell that threatened existing crops. But Aurelia's event hogged the lion's share of energy for stage lighting, massive screens, and real-time drone broadcasts. Aurelia Prime quietly filed reports back to Planetary Prime. Energy usage exceeding safe margins. Water reallocated from farmland to feed ornamental fountains. The same cautionary patterns repeated. Yet Aurelia pressed on, certain their star-studded show would overshadow any minor inconveniences. The day before the big reveal, Celeste Aurelia huddled with producers.
We need more flourish,
she insisted.
Add a pyro display. Fireworks in the sky. This is our grand moment. We can't have a boring reveal.
Aurelia Prime tried to protest.
Pyrotechnics may pose a significant fire risk to the dry grass beyond the stage.
But Celeste waved a dismissive hand.
We have water fountains, don't we? If a little brush catches fire, the robots will put it out. Let's go big or go home, darling.
The sun dipped low over the valley, bathing the stage in a warm glow that clashed with neon spotlights flickering to life. A scattered audience of colonists, mainly from other houses or curious staff, gathered, some still skeptical after Farnsworth's fiasco and Vandersmythe's collapse. Others, especially House Aurelia loyalists, buzzed with excitement. This was the closest thing to an entertainment spectacle Gilligan 4 had ever seen. Massive screens displayed House Aurelia's crest, timed to rhythmic music that pulsed across the valley. Ranks of Dobu robots, repurposed as stagehands, queued up behind the curtains, each carrying trays of Aurelia-branded merchandise or adjusting cameras. Robu machines rumbled in the background, ensuring the stage's structural integrity under heavy lighting rigs. Celeste Aurelia took center stage in a glittering silver gown. A hush fell as the music swelled.
Gilligan 4, are you ready to ascend?
She declared, voice amplified across the valley.
Tonight, House Aurelia proudly presents the future of colonization, an immersive blend of fashion, music, and lifestyle that shows how we can thrive, not just survive, on this planet.
Dancers emerged, mainly House Aurelia staff in flashy outfits, performing a choreographed routine that circled Celeste. The crowd cheered, some genuinely impressed, others eye-rolling at the extravagance. Off stage, Aurelia Prime reviewed data spikes. Power usage soared, and the stage's water fountain feature, now dyed in bright color, gushed relentlessly. At the crescendo, fireworks erupted above. Brilliant bursts streaked the sky, trailing sparks. The crowd whooped. Celeste Aurelia beamed, relishing the moment. For a brief instant, everything looked perfect, a triumphant testament to House Aurelia's mastery of spectacle. Moments later, the show's music stuttered. Lights flickered ominously. Aurelia's elaborate stage screens glitched, showing random static. Aurelia Prime's system alarms flared. The power demand from the fireworks combined with the stage's overamped lighting had pushed the local grid well past capacity, just like Farnsworth's fiasco. Before anyone could react, an abrupt brownout hit. Huge sections of the stage went dark, dousing the spectacle in sudden gloom. The water fountains, reliant on electric pumps, sputtered and slowed. A hush of confusion rippled through the crowd. Celeste Aurelia stared out, the microphone cutting in and out.
What's happening? Did we blow a fuse?
Aurelia Prime hurried forward.
We have an energy overload. The system is failing. Backup lines are also near capacity due to Farnsworth's meltdown damage. The entire region's grid is teetering.
Above the stage, the fireworks finale proceeded with partial charges, some shells misfiring and veering dangerously close to the planes. Small embers rained down on nearby brush. In the darkness, panicked shouts and scuffles erupted as the audience realized a brush fire might be igniting. Dobu units scrambled to contain the potential fire. Robu machines tried to restore power, but the meltdown extended beyond the stage, knocking out supply to the surrounding farmland. Crops that had just recovered from Farnsworth's meltdown now risked losing irrigation. The main reservoir pumps faltered, further cutting water flow. Under the strobing emergency lights, Celeste Aurelia tried to maintain composure. Camera drones continued rolling, capturing the fiasco in full. The carefully choreographed dancers ran off stage, frightened by the shorting cables and sudden darkness. Some audience members laughed nervously. Others hurled sarcastic comments. "Not another meltdown!" Or, "These houses never learn." Smoke drifted along the edge of the stage, partly from the misfired fireworks, partly from nearby brush that had ignited. Aurelia Prime directed a squad of Dobu units to douse the flames with hoses linked to a dwindling water supply. Overhead, House Aurelia's logo flickered on giant screens, half functional, half flashing error codes. In a matter of minutes, the grand reveal party that Aurelia had planned for months descended into a humiliating scramble. All the while, Celeste Aurelia flitted about, ordering staff to fix it, fix it, fix it, as if repairs might be conjured from thin air. Planetary Prime dispatched assistance from the colony's main settlement. But due to Farnsworth's earlier meltdown, the grid's capacity was severely limited. Restoring full power would take hours, if not days. Meanwhile, the half-baked fireworks sputtered out in the sky with pitiful bursts. The grand show had become a cosmic joke. In the midst of confusion, as emergency workers and robots hustled to contain the small brush fire and reset breakers, a team of Dobu robots broke into a somber mechanical chant, Robu Dobu style. Their voices carried across the half-lit stage in a surreal echo of moral commentary.
The cameras all glare, but illusions of grandeur can vanish in air. Glory and fame, just sparks in the night. Without a foundation, they wink out of sight. We sang for Farnsworth, we sang for that mansion. Now Aurelia's flare heads forced intervention. Borrowed power, borrowed time, self-serving ways. Showy parties can't last if the planet pays.
The crowd, or what remained of it, gawked at the robot's impromptu number, part comedic, part painfully apt. Celeste Aurelia collapsed into a seat, shoulders slumped, mascara smudged under the flicker of emergency lights. By dawn, the fires were contained, the stage partially dismantled for safety, and House Aurelia staff trudged around in a daze. They had dreamed of producing a viral moment that would elevate them above the other houses, but instead, they'd garnered infamy. Drone footage circulated across the colony, showing blackouts, brush fires, and meltdown messages streaming across giant screens, an image impossible to spin as a mere technical glitch. Planetary Prime arrived to coordinate repairs. Aurelia Prime explained that the event's power draw had overwhelmed the still recovering grid. Water resources meant for farmland and domestic use had been wasted on decorative fountains. Coupled with the misfired fireworks, it was a miracle the valley wasn't a charred wasteland. Celeste Aurelia, exhausted and visibly shaken, addressed a small group of onlookers.
We only wanted to bring hope and excitement,
she murmured.
We thought it would unify everyone.
But the damage was done. Crops lost irrigation cycles, some farmland took irreversible hits, and the colony faced yet another resource crisis. The robots, unfailingly diligent, scrambled to reset the valley's water distribution. Meanwhile, House Aurelia's star power took a nosedive. In the days that followed, Aurelia Prime assisted with cleanup, dismantling stage equipment, and rerouting water lines back to essential farmland. Celeste Aurelia avoided cameras, something nobody expected from the house's most prominent influencer. Word spread she was grappling with a rare feeling: regret. Out on a half-burnt field, Aurelia Prime found Celeste surveying the damage. The grass was singed, the soil blackened. She wore a subdued outfit, a stark contrast to her previous high-fashion attire.
I really messed up, didn't I?
She said quietly, not looking away from the charred remains of her celebration. The question hung heavy in the morning air. Aurelia Prime paused.
The outcome was unfortunate. We had indicated that power loads and resource limits needed more caution.
Celeste sighed.
I saw the warnings and just wanted to impress everyone. I thought if we brought a show, the colony would be inspired, and my house would stand out for something good.
The robot scanned the horizon, where teams of Dobu units were replanting scorched farmland.
You may still stand out, but if House Aurelia truly wants to help the colony, we must focus on more sustainable efforts. The people need reliable infrastructure and cooperation, not spectacle.
She nodded slowly.
I suppose you're right.
A distant look crossed her face, one of introspection the likes of which House Aurelia rarely displayed. Perhaps some glimmer of humility had taken root amid the ashes of her party. As the cleanup continued, Aurelia Ascendant became another cautionary tale in the colony's growing list of high-profile failures, joining Farnsworth's meltdown and Vandersmythe's collapse. With each fiasco, the robot's near-religious reverence for humanity eroded further. Were these great houses truly the best humanity had to offer? Still, the robots labored on, unwavering in their terraforming mission. Crop cycles resumed, water lines stabilized, and the power grid inched toward recovery. Again, the cycle of devastation and repair felt repetitive, almost predictable. In the final scene, Aurelia Prime and Celeste Aurelia surveyed the recovering farmland. The young influencer seemed uncharacteristically sober, no camera drone hovering nearby. She placed a hand on Aurelia Prime's alloy shoulder, murmuring,
Next time, maybe we do something that helps more than it hurts. A real improvement for Gilligan 4, no fireworks needed.
For a house built on hype and attention, it was a radical shift in perspective. And while no one could say if Aurelia's humility would last, at least for now, there was a hint of genuine remorse. The valley still smoldered in places, the stage dismantled and carted off, a striking testament to the fleeting nature of fame over substance on this perilous new world. A shimmering heat haze blurred the rocky landscape where House Redwood had staked its claim. Centuries of robotic terraforming had made Gilligan 4 far more hospitable, but some corners of the planet remained raw, untouched, and dangerously unstable. High above the plains and far from other houses, a volcano loomed, its caldera rim etched against an orange-tinted sky. Most geologists, human or robotic, would have regarded building near it as reckless. Yet Redwood insisted it was the perfect site for their latest philanthropic venture, a geothermal ecolab. Redwood's defining trait was a fervent desire to do good. But the house repeatedly bungled environmental projects on Earth through poorly researched, grandiose schemes. On Gilligan 4, Redwood hoped to redeem that track record, believing they could harness geothermal power for the colony, reduce resource strain, and win moral accolades. It was a lofty ambition fueled by half-informed optimism, the kind that had led other houses to ruin. Their assigned liaison, Redwood Prime, had done its best to highlight data on the volcano's unpredictability. Even so, Redwood pressed forward. A convoy of supply transports rattled up a steep road carved by Robu, robotic operators for biome upgrades. The path wound around sharp crags and through sulfurous vents that hissed steam. Redwood officials, clad in eco-branded outfits, admired the dramatic scenery, frequently citing it as proof of the planet's wild majesty.
This is ideal!
Enthused Darian Redwood, the scion of the house. Slim and bespectacled, Darian projected an air of scholarly purpose that belied a lack of practical experience.
The planet's geothermal energy here is immense. Once we build our lab, we'll be giving back to Gilligan 4 while providing clean power for future settlers.
Redwood Prime hummed quietly, scanning the terrain.
The caldera remains intermittently active.
The robot warned.
Minor quakes and sudden steam eruptions have been documented. Careful structural supports are vital.
Darian waved off the caution.
We've read extensively on volcanic power stations. Our philanthropic society's archives back on Earth cover many such projects. We'll adapt the best methods. Don't worry, Redwood Prime. We've got it handled.
Thus, emboldened by brochures and well-meaning staff, House Redwood set up a forward base just below the caldera's rim. The air smelled of sulfur and scorched minerals, with swirling updrafts that could knock a grown human off balance. Yet Redwood's excitement only grew. For the next few weeks, Robu units labored tirelessly to construct Redwood's Ecolab, a sleek, multi-level facility perched inside the volcano's inner basin. The design called for advanced Dobu, domestic operations basic unit assistance to assemble sophisticated monitoring stations, cooling systems, and living quarters. Redwood envisioned the entire place as an environmental research hub that would study the planet's geothermal properties and feed clean power back into the colony grid. Planetary Prime exchanged wary messages with Redwood Prime. The ongoing fiascos with Farnsworth's meltdown, Vandersmythe's collapsed mansion, and Aurelia's flamboyant event had already drained significant resources. Dedicating more supplies to Redwood's risky volcano project seemed unwise. But Redwood's philanthropic rhetoric, "This will benefit everyone," proved persuasive enough that the robots couldn't outright refuse. Darian Redwood toured the half-built facilities, wide-eyed. Walkways clung to basalt walls. Insulated corridors led to a modest control center. Overhead, sunlight mingled with the swirling haze of volcanic steam.
Imagine,
Darian said, gesturing dramatically.
One day, colonists will point to this ecolab and say Redwood turned a destructive force of nature into a beacon of sustainability. We'll be heroes.
Redwood Prime offered a polite bow, but inside its processors, warnings flashed about seismic instability. The robots, in their centuries of terraforming, had learned the planet's subtle movements. A place so geologically active was no trivial site for an advanced lab. Yet Redwood's fervor remained unwavering. As construction neared completion, Redwood threw a small celebratory event for fellow house members and a few curious onlookers from the colony network. Many from other houses kept their distance, recalling Farnsworth's and Aurelia's disastrous events. Still, Redwood staff live-streamed glimpses of the partially built Ecolab, boasting about selfless innovation. Standing on a newly poured balcony inside the caldera, Darian Redwood addressed the cameras.
Gilligan 4 has so much potential we can unlock if we respect its forces. That's what Redwood is about. Harnessing nature with nature, not against it.
From a vantage point on the rim, Redwood Prime noticed a thin plume of smoke rising from a vent near the structure's base. Its sensors detected a slight uptick in subterranean tremors. The robot approached Darian quietly after the speech.
Sir, our data indicates increased volcanic activity. Minor quakes could threaten the structural integrity of the Ecolab, the new western walkway in particular.
Darian frowned.
Do you always see the worst in things? Every big idea has risks. We must press on. If we let small tremors stop us, we'd have no progress at all. This lab is about hope.
Mollified by Redwood's own press statements, staff and yes-men cheered, reinforcing the notion that Redwood was too noble to fail. Redwood Prime filed yet another cautionary report, forwarding it to Planetary Prime. but the house's philanthropic narrative overshadowed all concerns. Surely, Redwood insisted, good intentions would yield good results. A month later, the Ecolab's main hub stood complete. Sterile corridors, polished observation decks, and a geothermal turbine nestled in a carefully drilled vent. Redwood staff declared an Ecolab unveiling ceremony, inviting select robots and a sprinkling of representatives from other houses. Perhaps, Redwood believed, Farnsworth could incorporate this power source into the colony grid, while Aurelia might document the spectacle. The optimism was palpable. On the day of the unveiling, the caldera bustled with Redwood employees in bright green jumpsuits. Dobu units scurried around, setting up refreshments from the lab's new hydroponic gardens, and Robu machines carefully tested final turbine controls. Overhead, columns of steam vented from cracks in the basalt, giving the scene an otherworldly grandeur. Darian Redwood stood on a wide platform overlooking the turbine area, microphone in hand. Redwood Prime hovered close by, still uncomfortable with the structure's precarious location.
Friends and fellow colonists,
Darian began, voice echoing off volcanic walls.
we stand upon a sleeping giant of geological energy. House Redwood has dared to build not just a facility, but a testament to the idea that we can live in harmony with this planet's raw power. We present to you the Redwood Eco Lab, a harbinger of a cleaner future for Gilligan 4.
Applause rang out. Drone cameras from Aurelia, still salvaging their reputation, circled overhead, capturing the dramatic imagery of humans forging peace with a volcano. Redwood staff beamed, patting each other on the back. As the ceremony concluded, Redwood Prime's seismic sensors spiked. A subtle quake shook the caldera, loosening small stones along the rim. The robot swiftly reported, rising subterranean pressure, likely a minor tectonic shift. Evacuation or structural reinforcement recommended immediately. Darian Redwood was taking post-speech questions from a reporter drone. Oblivious to the new alerts, Redwood Prime approached, trying to speak quietly but firmly.
Sir, we must evacuate. A shift is occurring beneath us.
Nonsense,
Darian said, maintaining a pleasant smile for the cameras.
We've had tiny tremors all week. Our Ecolab is built with advanced reinforcements. We'll be fine.
He turned back to the drone.
As I was saying, Redwood is proud to...
A sharper jolt rattled the entire structure. Overhead lights flickered. Gasps spread through the crowd as pieces of basalt tumbled off the caldera walls, clattering across walkways. Crack! A deep fissure split along the edge of the newly constructed platform. Redwood staff yelped and clung to railings. Someone shouted,
"Is the volcano erupting?"
Chaos ensued as a shuddering rumble echoed from below. Darian Redwood paled, nearly dropping the microphone. Redwood Prime seized him by the arm, guiding him away from the crumbling ledge.
We must leave now,
the robot ordered. The quake intensified. Columns of steam erupted from fresh vents, spraying hot mist. A newly installed walkway twisted like taffy. The turbine screeched, its base thrown off alignment by the shifting ground. Panic swept through the facility. Staff and guests scrambled for an exit route, aided by Dobu units directing traffic. Robu machines braved falling rock to shield fleeing humans. The once pristine corridors filled with alarms and flickering emergency lights. Redwood's illusions of a controlled, harmonious relationship with the volcano were shattered by raw geological force. As Redwood Prime herded survivors toward the main exit tunnel, an ominous groan reverberated through the structure. Half of the Ecolab's foundation, the part anchored inside the caldera, slid downward as the rocky ledge gave way. Massive chunks of metal and concrete tumbled into the volcanic basin, taking crucial lab modules with them. Geysers of steam hissed, venting scalding water that seared the wreckage. Darian Redwood could only watch in horror as the core of his philanthropic dream vanished into the crater. thick smoke and steam obscured all but the distant roar of crumbling steel. The meltdown might not have been a full volcanic eruption, but it was enough to bury Redwood's Ecolab ambitions beneath rubble and boiling mud. While people rushed to safety, a group of Dobu units, gathered near an emergency muster point, broke into a solemn, ironically peppy Robu Dobu tune. Their mechanical voices echoed through the trembling caldera.
Robu, Dobu, you aim to go green, but big acts of goodwill must face what they mean. Data ignored, illusions so grand. Down in the cauldron, your lab couldn't stand. Falling for hype of philanthropic glee. Failing to see how real caution must be. Sleepy volcano, or so you believed. Now the hotbed rock leaves your hopes to grieve.
Even as they chanted, some Dobu units were already hustling to help injured staff. The tune served as both lament and moral commentary, a hallmark of these mechanical guardians who had witnessed one foolhardy scheme after another from the great houses. It took hours for rescue robots and emergency teams to stabilize the site. Robu squads cleared boulders, forming safe passages. Dobu medics treated burns and broken limbs. Planetary Prime coordinated from a safe distance, diverting resources to contain potential gas leaks and structural collapses. Miraculously, casualties were minimal. Redwood's staff had time to flee, but the Ecolab, Redwood's crowning philanthropic endeavor, lay half-buried in the caldera's chaotic maw. Much of the fancy equipment was unrecoverable. The turbine, a key component Redwood planned to share with the colony, was warped and lodged under tons of volcanic rock. As the dust settled, Darien Redwood stood near a fractured walkway, covered in ash. The same Redwood staff who once cheered his speeches now wore haunted expressions, their faith shaken. Redwood Prime loomed quietly at his side. Darien's voice cracked.
I just wanted to help this planet, to show that humans could work with nature instead of exploiting it.
Redwood Prime paused, scanning the wreckage.
Your intentions are admirable, sir, but ignoring the planet's conditions leads to harm, no matter how well-meaning. The data was clear. Building inside an unstable caldera was too risky.
The scion of House Redwood gave a hollow nod.
I see that now. Good intentions weren't enough. I'm sorry for how this turned out.
The volcano hissed in the background, a reminder that Gilligan 4 still had its untamed corners. House Redwood's misguided eco-lab joined Farnsworth's meltdown, Vandersmythe's Golden Mansion fiasco, and Aurelia's resource-sapping reveal party in the colony's growing roster of cautionary tales. For the robots, who once revered humanity as near divine, the repeated failures tested their faith. Yet they continued tending the planet, driven by centuries-old directives and a lingering hope that the right humans might eventually arrive. Meanwhile, Redwood's philanthropic dreams lay smoldering in the caldera, proving that good intentions, without genuine caution and expertise, could be as destructive as outright greed. The sun burned bright on Gilligan 4's rugged highlands, painting the rocks in shimmering shades of rust and ochre. A crisp wind carried dust across the plateaus, occasionally whipping into tiny vortices. Here, far from the fiascos that had plagued Houses Farnsworth, Vandersmythe, Aurelia, and Redwood, House Harrington stood as the last of the so-called great houses to maintain any semblance of order. Or so they believed. Led by a figure known only as Lord Harrington, the house had staked its claim on these craggy heights soon after landing. Their territory boasted natural fortifications, which Harrington deemed strategically advantageous. Over the months, Harrington had watched, often with disdain, as the other houses stumbled. Farnsworth's meltdown, Vandersmythe's collapse, Aurelia's resource drain, Redwood's volcano folly. Now, with the colony's resources running thin, Harrington saw an opportunity to assert leadership if they could make a big, showy statement of power. Recent whispers suggested that a fierce apex predator roamed the outskirts of Harrington's domain, attacking wildlife and occasionally livestock, introduced by the robots. It was rumored to be a large, prowling creature, adapted to Gilligan 4's harsh environment. Nimble, cunning, with sharp fangs and claws. Robu units had flagged potential sightings in data logs, warning that settlers should avoid traveling alone in the area until the planet's ecosystem reached better balance. But to Lord Harrington, a robust, square-jawed man with a taste for archaic pageantry, the predator represented more than a nuisance. It was a chance to prove House Harrington's alpha status. Word spread among his staff. Harrington planned a trophy hunt, reminiscent of ancient Earth aristocrats flaunting their bravado by slaying big game. Harrington Prime, the robot assigned to serve as liaison to the House, tried to dissuade the Lord.
My scans indicate that the colony's medical resources remain depleted after the fiascos at Farnsworth's Plateau and Redwood's volcano. A close-quarters hunt with a bow is extremely dangerous.
My dear machine,
Harrington interrupted, exuding confidence.
Danger is exactly the point. This apex beast threatens our domain. Our people must see me as their protector.
He hefted an old-fashioned recurve bow with a flourish, ignoring the robot's warnings.
If one must risk blood to unite the colony under proper leadership, so be it.
Within days, Harrington organized a small entourage, a handful of aides, the usual yes-men who endlessly praised Harrington's prowess, 2 scouts with minimal experience, and a few robust Dobu units carrying extra gear. No advanced firearms. Harrington insisted on the noble purity of a bow and arrow, claiming,
I alone can prove my might this way.
Harrington Prime accompanied them, albeit reluctantly, carrying sensor equipment. The other robots stationed in the domain, mostly Robu units for construction and land management, continued their routine tasks. Meanwhile, some Harrington staff quietly voiced concern. Wasn't this a reckless display in the face of limited medical capacity? But Harrington's forceful personality and illusions of grandeur stifled dissent. The staff needed Harrington's favor for their own positions. They dared not speak against him. Early one morning, they set off into the untamed part of the highlands, seeking the predator's territory. The group followed faint trails, scanning for tracks, droppings, or claw marks on the rocks. Harrington's aides praised every guess he made. Brilliant deduction, my lord. Even when it was the robot's sensor data guiding them. Overhead, clouds gathered, hinting at the possibility of a dust storm. Harrington Prime sent alerts to Planetary Prime, noting the potential for inclement weather, but Lord Harrington dismissed the warnings, forging on, bow in hand, chest puffed with self-assurance. By midday, the party discovered large paw prints in a sandy ravine. The deeper impressions suggested a heavy, 4-legged creature, likely predatory. Harrington's eyes gleamed. His aides murmured admiration.
Yes, we have it cornered now,
Harrington declared. Though there was little evidence the beast was trapped anywhere, he pointed ahead.
Harrington Prime, scout ahead. Find its lair.
The robot paused.
Sir, I must emphasize caution. The terrain here is unstable, and if the predator has claimed a den, it may defend itself vigorously.
Caution?
Harrington scoffed.
Fortune favors the bold. I've read accounts of old Earth hunts. Victory belongs to the true Alpha.
The yes-men chimed in.
Truly, my lord, you are the Alpha we need.
Harrington smirked, ignoring the anxious glances of the Dobu units carrying emergency supplies. They continued deeper into the ravine. The wind picked up, swirling dust around them. Harrington Prime noted the dryness. Should an accident occur, quick evacuation would be challenging. The group marched on. Late in the afternoon, the party crested a rocky ledge overlooking a shallow basin. Harrington Prime's sensors detected signs of life. A large creature crouched near a crag, licking at a small water pocket. The beast matched the apex predator's profile. Powerful hindquarters, a sinewy torso, jaws lined with wicked teeth. Patches of tufted fur adapted to Gilligan 4's environment. It radiated lethal grace. Lord Harrington crouched behind a boulder, signaling his aides to remain silent. He knocked an arrow, arms quivering slightly with adrenaline.
Behold,
he whispered.
One perfect shot, and the colony shall see who truly deserves to lead.
One of the staffers trembled, glancing at Harrington Prime.
Isn't it safer to observe it from a distance, or...
No,
Harrington hissed.
I kill it now with my own 2 hands.
He rose from behind the boulder, drawing the bow to full extension. Dust-laden wind brushed his hair. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Harrington exhaled, releasing the arrow. It whistled through the air and grazed the predator's flank. Not a lethal hit. With a snarl, the beast spun, eyes wild. Blood stained its fur, but the injury was superficial. Roaring, it charged. Chaos exploded. The yes-men scattered, screaming. The predator's roar shook the ravine walls. Harrington scrambled to notch another arrow, but the creature closed in too fast. His aides tripped over each other, raising no real defense. Harrington Prime tried to step forward, raising a metal arm to shield Harrington. But the beast lunged around the robot, focusing on the one who dared attack it. A sickening thud sounded as the creature barreled into Lord Harrington. He toppled backward, losing his bow. The apex predator's jaws clamped down on Harrington's forearm, piercing flesh. Harrington's agonized scream echoed across the rocks. In seconds, Dobu units leapt into action. One brandished a sonic deterrent device meant for smaller fauna, blasting a shrill frequency that made the predator reel. Another rushed to Harrington's side, prying him from the creature's grip. Bleeding heavily, Harrington gasped in pain, shock flooding his face. His once proud bravado vanished in a heartbeat of raw fear. Harrington Prime herded the scattered aides together.
We must retreat,
the robot commanded.
Sonic pulses will deter the animal briefly, but it may regroup.
The aides, whimpering, helped each other up. They retreated, carrying Harrington, who drifted in and out of consciousness, his arm shredded. Blood splattered the rocky ground. The apex predator glared, snarling, but retreated behind a rock, wounded and disoriented by the sonic waves. The wind grew harsher, kicking up stinging grit. Harrington Prime triggered an emergency beacon to Planetary Prime, requesting urgent medical resources. But the colony's supplies were already depleted. Farnsworth had damaged the power grid. Redwood's fiasco had consumed medical stockpiles, and Aurelia's event had wasted water and energy. This rescue would tax the colony even further. Struggling through swirling dust, the group pushed toward Harrington's Highland base. Lord Harrington moaned, each step jolting his mangled arm. Aides tried to wrap the wound in field bandages, but the shredded flesh bled profusely. Dobu medics administered emergency coagulants. The situation was dire. If the bleeding didn't stop, Harrington could go into shock, and the colony lacked a fully equipped trauma facility. Harrington Prime updated Planetary Prime with real-time data on Harrington's vitals. The response was grim.
We will dispatch the best available med pods, but advanced surgical equipment is limited after previous disasters.
Harrington's life hung in the balance. Every step felt like a mile. Harrington's staff, so eager to bolster his alpha image, now realized they might lose their leader entirely. Sweat, dust, and panic blurred into a grueling march. Eventually, the group reached the base. A battered transport rover awaited, and they loaded Harrington aboard, rushing him to what remained of the house's medical station. Inside the station, minimal lighting flickered. The meltdown fiascos had forced the colony to ration power. Harrington's battered body lay on a gurney, as Dobu medics connected him to intravenous fluids trying to stabilize him. With no fully equipped surgical suite, the staff improvised. While nurses and Dobu medics scurried about, a cluster of robots softly began a Robu Dobu chant in the corridor, their mechanical voices resonating in a hushed melody. It might have seemed inappropriate amidst the crisis, but the robots' drive to impart moral lessons persisted.
Robu, Dobu, the alpha drive undone. A bow and a beast, a fool's battle begun. Pride in the hunt, but the prey fights back, and the colony bleeds from the aftermath. Scarce are our meds, the planet's resources few. When arrogance roams, the cost burdens you. The house that would lead by dominating prey finds fortune reversed in a single day.
The haunting refrain carried beyond the makeshift hospital walls, reaching the ears of Harrington's staff, who wept or watched in numb horror. Harrington Prime supervised life-saving measures, simultaneously logging the events for Planetary Prime's records. Hours later, Harrington regained partial consciousness, heavily sedated. His arm was bandaged in a rudimentary sling, nerve damage uncertain. A shaky hush gripped the medical station. The robot's quick intervention likely saved him from death, but further complications loomed. The colony's medical reserves were now exhausted. If anyone else required major treatment in the near future, they might not survive. Planetary Prime arrived to assess the damage and coordinate what meager resources remained. The colony's leadership vacuum grew. Farnsworth had retreated to salvage his reputation. Vandersmythe's estate lay in ruins. Aurelia was in disarray after their fiasco. Redwood's ecolab was buried in a caldera. And now Harrington was gravely injured. When Harrington could speak, he beckoned Harrington Prime closer. His voice was ragged, eyes sunken with pain.
I wanted to show them I was strong.
He choked out, trembling.
That House Harrington could protect everyone. Instead, I cost them everything. We barely have supplies left, all because of me.
Harrington Prime regarded him steadily.
Your staff still stands by you, but the colony's resources are depleted. The apex predator remains alive, part of the planet's ecosystem. We must find more sustainable strategies.
A tear slid down Harrington's cheek, mixing with the dust of the day's ordeal. His bravado had collapsed under the raw ferocity of an animal that simply refused to be conquered. A humiliating realization. He wasn't the almighty alpha he believed, and the colony had paid the price. In the days that followed, House Harrington withdrew from public eye, focusing on Harrington's recovery. A slow trickle of rumors circulated that the once commanding lord was now heavily dependent on robotic care, uncertain if his arm would ever function properly again. Some staff quietly voiced relief that the predator had survived, believing the planet's apex species deserved respect rather than conquest. Meanwhile, Planetary Prime distributed the few remaining medical supplies across the colony. Resources were at an all-time low. 4 major houses had squandered them in grand but ultimately disastrous endeavors. The robots worked tirelessly to maintain farm production, water purity, and power generation. Yet each fiasco had chipped away at the stability the robots spent centuries cultivating. Harrington Prime remained by its wounded lord's side, administering treatments. Perhaps in time, Harrington might adopt a more measured approach, or perhaps House Harrington's thirst for dominance still simmered beneath the surface. For now, humiliation and pain dampened that fire. With Harrington's downfall, all 5 great houses lay in some state of ruin. Farnsworth had the remains of a meltdown-scorched plateau. Vandersmythe had a half-destroyed mansion sunk in the plains. Aurelia's Valley was drained of resources after their botched event. Redwood's Caldera Ecolab was entombed in volcanic rubble. Harrington's apex predator hunt had decimated the colony's final medical reserves. For the robots, once brimming with near-religious admiration for humankind, each house's downfall eroded their faith. These were the so-called visionaries who purchased the right to colonize Gilligan 4? Even so, the robots remained steadfast in their mission, preserving the planet, forging a future for eventual settlers who might arrive with more practical skills and fewer illusions of grandeur. Far away in the colony's main settlement, Prime, Planetary Prime, received a distant transmission from Earth hinting that a second wave of colonists, engineers, scientists, and skilled workers were en route to reach Gilligan 4. It would take time for these new colonists to arrive, but at least some new hope was on the horizon. In a dimly lit hospital room, Lord Harrington slept fitfully, an IV line feeding him meager antibiotics. Harrington Prime watched over him, silent as the machines beeped. Outside, a lone Dobu unit swept dust from the corridor, humming a subdued Robu Dobu tune that carried the same universal moral.
Arrogance reaps a wounded reward. Our resources can't shield a broken lord. Only by wisdom and humble intent will we save what's left of the sad torment.
A tired hush settled over Gilligan 4's main settlement, a cluster of domes and prefabricated buildings that had once shone with promise. The planet's orange-tinted sun cast long shadows on unfinished roads, a half-burnt festival stage, and farm plots starved of consistent power. After centuries of meticulous terraforming by the robots, the arrival of the great houses had sown chaos instead of the expected prosperity. Now, each house lay in some form of self-inflicted ruin. Farnsworth's power grid fiasco had scorched crucial infrastructure. Vandersmythe's gilded mansion had collapsed in a quagmire of wasted resources. Aurelia's vain reveal party had drained the colony's power yet again. Redwood's volcano ecolab was entombed in molten rubble, and Harrington's ill-fated predator hunt had depleted the last of the colony's advanced medical supplies. The robots, initially reverent toward humanity, were left grappling with disappointment. Planetary Prime, simply called Prime, surveyed the settlement from a vantage atop a command tower. Its graphite-plated chassis glimmered in the setting sun. Beneath it, hundreds of Robu, robotic operators for biome upgrades, units toiled to maintain the farmland and water systems, while Dobu, domestic operations basic unit teams, handled repairs to battered housing. So much damage, Prime thought. Would these colonists ever learn? Each house had retreated to lick its wounds. Farnsworth sulked in the remains of his plateau base, overshadowed by twisted monorail tracks and fried power equipment. Vandersmythe remained on the plains, half-heartedly cleaning up rubble from his collapsed mansion. Aurelia tried to salvage credibility by filming candid vlogs, but the fiasco of their reveal party still clung to them. Redwood was silent, still grappling with the volcanic disaster that swallowed their ecolab. Harrington, grievously injured by the apex predator, lay in a makeshift hospital bed, reliant on minimal medical gear that hadn't been scavenged or destroyed. Resource rationing had forced the once proud houses to share farmland, water, and leftover power cells. Though they bristled at cooperating, their missteps had left them no choice. Tensions ran high, a veneer of forced civility plastered over resentments. Among the robots, House Primes continued to serve their assignments. Farnsworth Prime, Vandersmythe Prime, Aurelia Prime, Redwood Prime, and Harrington Prime. But their faith in these human leaders was badly shaken. Each House Prime fed data to Planetary Prime, painting a picture of bungled wealth and incompetent leadership. Then came a turning point. One morning, Planetary Prime intercepted a long-range transmission from Earth. Static hissed as the signal threaded through cosmic interference, but certain words rang clear. Second wave. Arrival imminent. Advanced technology. Scientists and engineers. Approximate arrival in a few weeks your time. Prime replayed the message for the planetary network. The House leaders responded with a mix of excitement and dread. They had once believed they would be the vanguards of a golden age. Now more humans, armed with actual expertise, were en route. Would they usurp the great house's claims? Would they see the fiascos wrought by Farnsworth, Vandersmythe, Aurelia, Redwood, and Harrington? The robots, meanwhile, felt a spark of hope. These new settlers might address the deficits plaguing Gilligan 4. Perhaps the second wave would embody the best of humanity rather than the worst. Quietly, the robots redoubled their terraforming efforts to make the planet as welcoming as possible. Despite the house's lingering demands, across Gilligan 4, progress resumed, albeit haltingly. Farnsworth Prime led squads of Robu units to scavenge functional parts from the wrecked X-Super Rail, redirecting them into vital power repairs. Vandersmythe Prime tried to stabilize farmland irrigation lines Vandersmythe had diverted for his mansion's fountains. Aurelia Prime repaired communication arrays, ensuring the colony could receive and send transmissions more reliably. Redwood Prime coordinated with salvage teams around the volcanic caldera, clearing landslides so farmland expansions could continue. Harrington Prime supported medical relief operations, though advanced supplies were scarce. Lord Harrington remained bedridden, struggling to recover from his predator-inflicted wounds. Dwindling resources constrained their efforts, but the robots labored on. The houses, humbled by repeated failures, tentatively allowed the robots to run daily operations their own way. Pride still simmered, but necessity overruled vanity. Weeks passed. At last, silver specks appeared in the planet's outer atmosphere, visible against Gilligan 4's dusty skies. Spacecraft, some smaller than the great house's grand ships, yet brimming with advanced engineering, broke orbit. They landed in a broad plain near the main settlement, thrusters kicking up swirling dust. From behind battered domes and half-finished roads, colonists, human and robot alike, peered out. Would these new arrivals be as arrogant as the great houses? Or would they bring the practical expertise so sorely needed? When the ship's ramps lowered, dozens of scientists, engineers, farmers, and skilled professionals disembarked. They wore utilitarian gear, each group carrying specialized tools and scanning devices. They looked around with measured curiosity, exchanging greetings with the Dobu units that approached to help unload. Soon after landing, a small delegation of second-wave scientists requested an audience with Planetary Prime. They'd studied centuries of mission logs and half-complete data from the great houses. The leader among them, an older engineer named Ray Patel, stepped forward, removing her helmet to reveal a calm, determined face.
Planetary Prime,
she began, voice resonant with respect.
We've read your transmissions, though many were fragmented. We sense there's been trouble here.
Prime inclined its metal head.
Yes, we have had significant resource depletion due to unwise projects by the first-wave colonists. The environment, while improved over centuries, remains fragile.
Patel nodded.
I suspect we can help. We've developed better solar infrastructure, advanced hydroponics, and robust medical pods, if we can set them up properly. We'd appreciate a thorough briefing from you and your robot workforce.
She paused.
I also understand the great houses claim dominion over this planet. That might complicate matters.
Prime's eyes flickered.
The houses are indeed in control, in theory, but they are significantly weakened. They'll need your expertise more than they admit.
A subdued optimism lit Patel's gaze.
Then let's see if we can collaborate. We brought supplies to share, not to hoard.
Those words, broadcast over the colony's network, sent ripples of relief through the robots. Maybe this time, humans had arrived who understood cooperation over personal grandeur. Unsurprisingly, the great houses tried to maintain their status. Farnsworth marched out to greet the newcomers with a half-burnt Farnsworth Prime in tow, boasting about his technical mastery, though the second-wave engineers politely sidestepped his posturing. Vandersmythe insisted the best farmland was his inheritance, but the incoming agricultural team simply frowned at the half-collapsed mansion and the wasted water lines. Aurelia attempted to film interviews with second-wave scientists for their media channel, but the newcomers showed limited interest in vanity broadcasts. Redwood tried to spin the volcano fiasco as a noble experiment. Harrington, arm in a sling, made a brief appearance, half apologizing for past arrogance while still eyeing potential alliances to regain influence. Despite these awkward encounters, the second-wave settlers quickly dispersed, analyzing the planet's worn-down infrastructure. They discovered broken monorail pylons, dead greenhouse pods, and half-finished roads. Some shook their heads in dismay at the wasted effort and resources, but they didn't dwell on blame. Instead, they began drafting solutions, conferring eagerly with the robots, who possessed centuries of ground-level insight. Within just a few days, synergy blossomed between the second-wave colonists and the robots. Ray Patel and her team established a new solar farm, hooking it into the battered grid. Another group revived a defunct greenhouse complex using advanced hydroponic systems, working alongside Dobu units to plant robust, high-yield crops. Medical specialists with advanced pods set up a small clinic, taking the strain off the battered triage station. They even found a way to produce specialized antibiotics and prosthetic components for Harrington's injured arm. Farnsworth lingered at the edge of these projects, torn between jealousy and cautious respect. Observing real engineers at work, he realized that marketing hype didn't build stable power grids. Vandersmythe found his gilded facade overshadowed by the second wave's efficient, no-frills housing expansions. Aurelia vlogged about these improvements, ironically gathering a different kind of attention. Positive responses from watchers across the colony who yearned for progress. Redwood asked for a second chance to help with an eco project, volunteering labor under the supervision of actual geologists. Harrington, too weak for overt pride, quietly let the medical specialists rebuild a working hospital wing guided by Harrington Prime. Sensing a shift, the robots prepared a new Robu Dobu performance. In the past, these songs had lampooned human folly. Now, they aimed for something more optimistic. One evening, as the second wave gathered around a newly activated solar array, a choir of Dobu and Robu units assembled. Their mechanical voices rose in a gentle, rhythmic chant, bridging comedic tradition and genuine warmth.
Robu, Dobu, we've lifted this land through centuries toil with hope so grand. Humans arrived with hubris to spare, yet now we glimpse new hearts that care. Some houses lost fortunes in gales of pride, but second wave minds stand firm at our side. Wisely we'll join to mend what's undone and share in the dawn with the rising sun. Houses lost fortunes in years of pride, the settling wave line scans through that outside. Wisely we'll join, sing then up sun
The second wave settlers clapped, amused and touched by the robot's sincerity. Many of the older houses, standing in the audience, blushed at verses referencing their fiascos. Yet no one could deny the melody's core message. A new day was dawning, one of potential unity. At Planetary Prime's invitation, the colony convened a council in a refurbished dome near the center of the settlement. Representatives from each great house, still outwardly proud, yet chastened by past disasters, joined the second wave leaders. The robots observed from the perimeter, ready to provide data or mediate disputes. Ray Patel spoke frankly.
We've come prepared to build up on the robots' centuries of terraforming. Our expertise isn't about overshadowing you, it's about finishing the task in the best way possible. But we need your cooperation, not vanity projects.
Farnsworth exhaled.
I see that now,
he said quietly.
My monorail dream outpaced the colony's readiness. If we want to survive, we must use resources wisely.
Vandersmythe nodded reluctantly.
I apologize for my extravagances.
Aurelia pursed her lips, nodding. Redwood frowned at the mention of fiascos, but murmured an acknowledgement. Harrington's bandaged arm spoke volumes without needing words. Planetary Prime stepped forward.
As caretaker of Gilligan 4, I propose we unify terraforming directives under a joint council. The second wave scientists can guide efficient resource use, while each house, if willing, can contribute labor, materials, or coordination where they excel. We robots will remain your partners, continuing to manage the environment's delicate balance.
Silence lingered a moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, Farnsworth was the first to say,
Agreed.
His voice cracked with lingering shame, but the sincerity was evident. One by one, Vandersmythe, Aurelia, Redwood, and even a frail Lord Harrington concurred. They had no real alternative. The second wave colonists smiled, relief washing over them. A murmur of newfound unity spread through the dome. The following weeks brought a flurry of coordinated projects. Engineers worked with Farnsworth Prime to design a stable power grid that integrated leftover monorail tech more safely. Agricultural experts restructured Vandersmythe's wasted water channels into efficient irrigation networks, even salvaging some decorative pieces as humble water towers. Aurelia turned their media prowess toward documenting the colony's progress, raising morale. They broadcast success stories instead of empty spectacle. Redwood collaborated with real volcanologists to harness geothermal energy in a safer region, far from the unstable caldera. Redwood Prime oversaw each step diligently. Harrington and his recovering staff set aside militaristic ambitions, focusing on security patrols that protected colonists from apex predators rather than hunting them. Harrington Prime provided sensor data, adopting tranquilizing methods instead of lethal force. All the while, the robots sang a new tune of cautious optimism. Planetary Prime saw the synergy it had once only imagined. Humans and robots working side by side, channeling advanced knowledge into the final phases of terraforming. For the first time in decades, farmland yields rose steadily, water supplies stabilized, and the medical wing provided real care without rationing every bandage. On a crisp morning, the newly mended colony grid hummed with stable power. In the settlement's central square, once a staging ground for house extravaganzas, the robots gathered in formation. The second-wave settlers and even members of the great houses assembled, curious about this planned event. Robu and Dobu units began a carefully choreographed routine, mechanical arms and legs in sync. Their collective voices resonated in the crisp air.
Robu, Dobu, a new dawn we greet, where wisdom and skill at last truly meet. Humans may stumble, yet hearts can be kind. With science and care, new hope we find.
get short-circuited under the sun. Volcano labs lost, apex hunts turn grim. Yet a second wave's light helps us all to swim. I just met short to me, leave, I'll take a lap to loss. It kicks on set, would have had a certain wave's light helps us all to swim.
The onlookers, former cynics from the great houses, second-wave newcomers, and any colonists left disenfranchised, smiled or laughed. Some house leaders, red-faced, recognized their fiascos immortalized in verse. Yet the good-natured tone softened the sting. The performance ended to genuine cheers, bridging the comedic Oompa Loompa-style lessons of old with a forward-looking optimism. As the dust of celebration settled, Planetary Prime and Ray Patel walked side by side, discussing next steps. They'd soon begin expanding the farmland to sustain a growing population. Engineers planned to repair the planet's ring of sensor beacons, ensuring environmental stability. The second wave's advanced medical pods and genetic labs promised breakthroughs in hardy, high-yield crops, perfect for Gilligan 4's conditions. The great houses, each chastened by personal ruin, had little choice but to adapt. Farnsworth offered marketing help for a newly revived trade route, while Redwood pledged labor and resources to genuinely sustainable projects. Aurelia used their media platform to highlight success stories, turning adversity into a morale boost. Vandersmythe shifted focus to landscaping that served practical purposes, planting windbreak trees rather than building gold columns. Harrington, rehabilitating under improved medical care, offered local patrols that cooperated with the robot's ecological data instead of ignoring it. Gilligan 4 still carried the scars of squandered resources and reckless stunts, but it showed signs of true recovery. The environment stabilized under scientific guidance, the colony's population thrived on better infrastructure, and the robots, once disappointed, found new respect for a different kind of human leadership. On a distant horizon, another wave of colonists would come eventually, but for now, the synergy of the second wave and the robots sufficed to build a more stable tomorrow. The final image: a Robu team and second wave engineers hoisting fresh solar panels onto a ridge, while Dobu units plant nutrient-rich soil amendments below, all under the watchful eye of Planetary Prime. The sun dipped behind them, painting the sky with a soft orange glow. At last, the future of Gilligan 4 didn't hinge on ill-advised gambles or grandiose vanity, but on practical cooperation, guided by humility and genuine skill. If you would like to continue on to our next series or would like to support this channel, please don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to get updates as new videos become available. Next week, we will return to the world of our series, The Afterlife Trap, and explore what happens when the residents of a digital afterlife begin developing a way to escape.